The massive ships appeared at the edge of the solar system without warning. They were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. Inside the lead vessel, Grand Admiral Kelvara stood before the viewing screen with satisfaction in her eyes. After 30,000 years, the Zarthul Collective had finally returned to Earth. Kelvara remembered the old records well. Her ancestors had come to this primitive world long ago and found a species that had just learned to leave their planet. The humans had possessed crude weapons and even cruder manners. When the Zarthul offered them a choice to surrender or be destroyed, the humans had done something foolish. They launched every weapon they owned at the Zarthul fleet. The attack had been pathetic. The Zarthul shields deflected the missiles easily. Kelvara's predecessor had laughed at the attempt and decided not to destroy humanity. Instead, they issued a promise. They would return in 30,000 years to see if humans had learned wisdom. It was meant to be a lesson, a gift of time to evolve and mature. Now that time had passed. Kelvara expected to find a changed Earth, perhaps a peaceful civilization ready to join the collective. What her sensors showed instead made her freeze in confusion. The solar system was not as they had left it. Something was very wrong or very right, depending on how one looked at it. The sun itself was partially covered by massive structures that captured its energy. Mars glowed with cities visible from space. Venus, once a hellish wasteland, now had floating stations in its atmosphere. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn sparkled with lights of civilization. "Admiral?" her science officer called out, his voice shaking slightly. "The readings make no sense. This solar system has been completely transformed. The energy output suggests a civilization far more advanced than we anticipated." Kelvara felt a cold sensation in her chest. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be primitive, easy to control. She ordered her fleet to slow down and approach carefully. They began intercepting human broadcasts, trying to understand what had happened in 30,000 years. The recordings told a story that disturbed the Admiral. Humanity had not stopped fighting after the Zarthul left. They had wars, terrible ones that nearly destroyed them several times. They suffered disasters, plagues, and conflicts that should have ended their species. But somehow they survived everything. More than survived, they learned from each catastrophe. The Zarthul watched thousands of years of human history compressed into days of viewing. They saw humans spread to their moon, then Mars, then beyond. They watched humanity meet other alien species and sometimes fight them, sometimes befriend them. The record showed 2 major wars against alien empires that the Zarthul had never heard of. Both times humanity won. "How is this possible?" Kelvara muttered. They were so young, so weak. Her tactical officer reviewed the military records with growing alarm. "Admiral, their technology exceeds ours in several key areas. Their ships use a form of faster-than-light travel we do not understand. They have colonized hundreds of star systems. Their population is in the trillions." As the Zarthul fleet crossed the orbit of Neptune, a message arrived. It was in perfect Zarthul language, which should have been impossible since the humans had never heard it before. The message was simple and terrifying in its politeness. "Welcome back to our solar system. We have been expecting your return. Please proceed to the coordinates we are sending. We have prepared a station for our meeting. We look forward to speaking with you after so long." Kelvara stared at the message. They had been expecting this? For 30,000 years? She felt something she had not experienced in her long military career. She felt afraid. The coordinates led them to a space station that dwarfed their largest warship. It hung in space like a small city, its design sleek and advanced. As they approached, sensors detected thousands of smaller ships nearby, all waiting silently. "Admiral," her security chief reported, "we are detecting anomalous readings around our fleet. I cannot identify them, but something is out there." Kelvara made a decision. They would attend this meeting, but they would be ready for anything. She selected her best warriors and diplomats to accompany her to the station. As they prepared to board the shuttle, she looked at her officers. "Remember, we represent the Zarthul Collective. We have ruled this part of space for 100,000 years. These humans may have advanced, but they are still young. We will negotiate from strength." Her officers nodded, but Kelvara could see doubt in their eyes. She felt it too. Something about this situation was wrong. Humans should not have been able to advance this far, this fast. The Zarthul had given them time to mature, not to surpass their teachers. As the shuttle flew toward the human station, Kelvara reviewed everything she knew about humanity from the old records. They were stubborn, aggressive, and dangerously creative. They refused to accept limitations. When told something was impossible, they took it as a challenge. The Zarthul had thought giving them 30,000 years would teach them wisdom and peace. Looking at the transformed solar system around her, Kelvara realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had not given humanity time to become peaceful. They had given humanity time to prepare for war. The shuttle docked with the station and the airlock opened. A human woman stood waiting, flanked by guards in armor that seemed to shimmer with energy. She smiled warmly. "Welcome," she said in perfect Zarthul. "My name is Ambassador Chen. We have been waiting a very long time to meet you again. Please come inside. We have much to discuss." Kelvara stepped forward, her spine straight and proud. But inside she wondered what her ancestors had unleashed on the galaxy 30,000 years ago. The interior of the human station called Defiance 1 was nothing like Kelvara expected. The Zarthul delegation walked through corridors that seemed to change and shift slightly, as if the walls themselves were alive. Soft lighting came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The technology on display was subtle but clearly advanced beyond anything in the Zarthul fleet. Ambassador Chen led them to a large conference room with a view of space that showed Earth in the distance. The blue planet looked peaceful and beautiful, completely unaware of the tension in orbit. Chen gestured to comfortable seats arranged around a circular table. Human attendants brought drinks and food, offering them with genuine smiles. Kelvara remained standing. "We did not come here for refreshments. We came to discuss the future of your species." Chen nodded and sat down calmly. "Of course, but surely we can be civilized about it. Please sit. You have traveled far to reach us." The Admiral sat reluctantly, her officers following her lead. Chen poured herself a drink that looked like tea and took a sip before speaking. 30,000 years ago, your people came to Earth. You gave us an ultimatum. You told us to abandon our ways or face destruction. My ancestor, Commander Chen Li, was the one who ordered our ships to attack your fleet. It was a foolish attack, we know, but it was also the most important decision humanity ever made. Kelvara felt confused. Important? You attacked us with primitive weapons. We could have destroyed your world. Yes, Chen agreed, but you did not. Instead, you gave us a promise. You said you would return in 30,000 years. Do you understand what that gift meant to us? Gift? The Admiral's voice showed her surprise. It was a warning, not a gift. Chen smiled and activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Images appeared, showing the history of humanity after the Zarthul left. You gave us something precious. You gave us time and purpose. After you departed, humanity changed. Not in the way you expected, perhaps, but we changed. The hologram showed human colonies spreading through space, wars being fought, technologies being developed. We did not become peaceful, Chen continued. That is not in our nature. But we became focused. Every nation on Earth, every faction, every group agreed on one thing. When the Zarthul returned, we would be ready. Kelvara watched the images with growing unease. You spent 30,000 years preparing for our return? Every single day, Chen said proudly. We made it our mission. Our scientists worked to understand technologies we had only dreamed of. Our military leaders studied every possible scenario of your return. Our people united under a single goal. You became our teacher even though you were not here. The hologram changed to show statistics. Chen pointed to them as she spoke. We have colonized 847 star systems. Our population exceeds 9 trillion souls. We have made contact with 23 other alien species. Some are our friends, some are trading partners. We have fought 2 wars against aggressive empires and won both times. Impossible, breathed the Zarthul science officer. No species advances this quickly. Chen looked at him kindly. Most species do not have a deadline. We did. We knew you would return, and we took that seriously. Would you like to see what else we have accomplished? Before Kelvara could respond, the view screen behind Chen changed. It showed the Zarthul fleet, the same ships that had brought them here. But now, surrounding every Zarthul vessel, were thousands of human warships. They had appeared from nowhere, materializing like ghosts around the alien fleet. How? Kelvara stood up sharply. Our sensors detected nothing. Pocket dimension technology, Chen explained casually. We have been hiding those ships there since you entered our solar system. They have been watching you the whole time. We wanted you to feel safe enough to meet with us. The Admiral felt her confidence crumbling. You could have destroyed us at any moment. Yes, Chen said simply. But why would we? You are not our enemies. You are our teachers, remember? 30,000 years ago, you taught us that the universe is dangerous. You taught us that we needed to be strong. You taught us that we could not afford to be weak or divided. We learned those lessons very well. Kelvara sat down slowly. This meeting was not going as planned. She had come here to make demands to show strength. Instead, she was learning that humanity had surpassed the Zarthul in ways she had not imagined possible. Chen continued speaking, her voice gentle but firm. Now let us discuss why you really came back. You want to claim Earth for your collective. You want our resources, our technology, our people to serve you. This is what you do to younger civilizations. You conquer them, absorb them, make them part of your empire. It is the way of things, Kelvara said defensively. The strong guide the weak. It has always been so. Perhaps in your experience, Chen replied. But we have a different way. We believe in cooperation between equals. So here is what we propose. We will not join your collective. We will not submit to your authority. But we will trade with you. We will share some technologies. We will establish diplomatic relations. We will be your friends if you allow it. And if we refuse? Kelvara asked, though she already knew the answer. Chen's expression became serious. Then we will ask you to leave our space and never return. We do not want conflict. We have prepared for it, yes, but we do not desire it. However, if you force us to defend ourselves, we will do so completely. You have seen our ships. What you have not seen are the weapons we hope never to use. The hologram changed again, showing technical schematics that made the Zarthul officers gasp. Weapons that could tear holes in space itself. Defensive shields that existed in multiple dimensions. Ships that could travel across the galaxy in moments. Chen let them look for a full minute before turning off the display. We showed you this not to threaten you, she said quietly. But to be honest with you, we respect you enough to tell you the truth. You cannot conquer us. You cannot threaten us. But you can be our friends and allies. Is that not better than war? Kelvara sat in silence for a long moment. Around the table, her officers waited for her decision. Finally, she spoke. I need to consult with my fleet commanders. This is not the meeting I expected. Of course, Chen said, standing and bowing slightly. Take all the time you need. We have waited 30,000 years. We can wait a little longer, but Admiral, please understand one thing. Humanity does not bluff. Everything we have shown you is real. As the Zarthul delegation returned to their shuttle, Kelvara looked back at the human ambassador. Chen smiled and waved goodbye like they were old friends. The Admiral felt a chill run through her body. They had not come to meet a primitive species. They had walked into a trap set 30,000 years ago, and humanity had been patient enough to let it close perfectly. The Zarthul fleet gathered at a safe distance from Earth, far beyond the orbit of Neptune. Inside the command ship, the leadership met in heated debate. Admiral Kelvara sat at the head of the table, tired and uncertain. Around her, opinions clashed like thunder. We should withdraw immediately, she stated firmly. These humans are not what we expected. They are too powerful, too prepared. We cannot conquer them. General Thurok slammed his fist on the table. He was a warrior, scarred from many battles, and he refused to accept retreat. Cowardice! Yes, they have advanced, but so what? We have fought stronger enemies before. We cannot let them intimidate us with tricks and displays. I say we attack with our full strength. Destroy their homeworld and scatter their colonies. Scientist Primus Velian, the most intelligent of the Zarthul present, raised her hand for attention. Both of you speak from emotion, not logic. We need more information. We do not understand how humanity achieved this level of advancement. It defies all our models of technological progress. Let me study them further before we make any decisions. The debate continued for hours, going in circles. Finally, Kelvara made a decision. They would investigate human space more thoroughly before taking action. She ordered stealth probes launched to observe human colonies and gather intelligence. Velian would lead the research effort while Thurok prepared military options. They would reconvene in 1 week with their findings. The stealth probes spread throughout the solar system and beyond, observing human civilization from hidden positions. What they recorded fascinated and disturbed the Zarthul in equal measure. Velian watched the data streams with growing amazement. Human colonies were chaotic in a way that seemed impossible to the ordered Zarthul society. On Mars, 3 different governments competed for resources while simultaneously cooperating on major projects. On Venus, corporate entities ran the floating cities with minimal central control. The asteroid belt was a wild mixture of independent stations, mining operations, and even pirate havens. This should not work, Velian muttered to her assistant. How can they function with so much disorder? But as she studied deeper, she began to understand. The chaos was not weakness. It was strength. Competition between human factions drove innovation at an incredible pace. Companies competed to build better ships, which made all human ships better. Nations competed in scientific research, which advanced all human knowledge. Even their conflicts served a purpose, teaching lessons and revealing weaknesses before real enemies could exploit them. The probes intercepted human entertainment broadcasts, and Velian found herself drawn into this strange window on human culture. She watched movies about alien invasions, read books about space warfare, played recordings of strategy games where humans practiced fighting enemies from the stars. It was all fictional, but it revealed something terrifying. Humanity had spent 30,000 years imagining this exact scenario. They had created millions of stories about aliens returning to conquer Earth. Every possible strategy, every type of weapon, every form of attack had been explored in their fiction. They had practiced for this meeting in their collective imagination, running through endless scenarios until they were ready for anything. Velian discovered something that made her call Kelvara immediately. "Admiral, you need to see this. I found a human military document." The document appeared on screen. It was old, dated 29,147 years before the current date, just 153 years after the Zarthul had first left Earth. The title read, Human Response Protocol Number 1. They asked for this. Kelvara read through the protocol with mounting dread. It outlined exactly how humanity would respond if the Zarthul returned with hostile intent. The document predicted the Zarthul's tactics with frightening accuracy. It even included contingency plans for scenarios the Admiral herself had not considered. Worst of all, it showed that this protocol had been updated constantly for nearly 30,000 years, refined and improved by countless generations of human strategists. "They have been preparing for us specifically," Kelvara said quietly. "We are not just any enemy to them. We are the enemy, the one they built their entire civilization to face." Meanwhile, General Thurok conducted his own investigation. He studied human military capabilities and found them impressive but not invincible. Their ships were powerful, yes, but they relied on technologies that might have weaknesses. Their colonies were spread thin across hundreds of systems. Surely, if the Zarthul struck hard and fast at Earth itself, they could decapitate human leadership and throw their empire into chaos. Thurok began secretly preparing a strike force. He selected 1/3 of the fleet, the most aggressive commanders and the most powerful weapons. He planned to attack Earth directly, without authorization from Kelvara. In his mind, this was necessary. The Admiral had grown soft, and Velian was too curious about these primitives. Someone had to act decisively. What Thurok did not know was that every communication he sent was being intercepted by human intelligence. Every plan he made was observed. The humans knew about his unauthorized strike force before his own Admiral did. Velian made another discovery that changed her understanding completely. She found evidence that humans had been deliberately leaving technology for the Zarthul to discover. Advanced power cells that seemed abandoned in space. Computer systems that appeared to be malfunctioning and ejected from human ships. Each item was placed where Zarthul probes would find them. She analyzed one of these devices carefully. It functioned perfectly, but as she studied its design, she realized it contained subtle monitoring systems. The humans were not just leaving technology. They were testing the Zarthul, watching to see what they would do with it, learning about Zarthul capabilities and intentions. "We are not the observers here," Velian reported to Kelvara. "We are the ones being observed. Everything we have done since arriving in this system, the humans have watched and recorded. They know our ship designs, our weapons, our tactics. They have been studying us just as carefully as we have been studying them." Kelvara felt the weight of command pressing down on her. She had led the Zarthul fleet for 50 years, conquered a dozen worlds, and never felt outmaneuvered. But here, in this system, she was facing an enemy that had turned patience into a weapon. Humanity had not attacked them. They had not threatened them. They had simply waited, prepared and quietly shown the Zarthul exactly how outmatched they were. The week of investigation ended with a final meeting of the Zarthul leadership. Velian presented her findings about human culture and capabilities. Kelvara shared the military protocols that showed how thoroughly humanity had prepared for this encounter. They discussed options, strategies, and possibilities. General Thurok listened to everything in silence. He had already made his decision. Tomorrow, without telling anyone, he would launch his attack. Earth would burn, and the humans would learn that the Zarthul were not to be dismissed. He was certain of victory, certain that swift action would succeed where careful planning had failed. He did not know that at that very moment, human commanders were watching his strike force and preparing their response. They had known about his plans for days. They had calculated his likely attack patterns, positioned their defenses, and prepared a lesson that Thurok would never forget. The stage was set for a confrontation that would prove once and for all what 30,000 years of human preparation truly meant. General Thurok gave the order at dawn, by human time measurement. His strike force consisted of 400 warships, all heavily armed and equipped with the most powerful weapons in the Zarthul arsenal. They moved toward Earth in a tight formation, their shields at maximum power, their weapons charged and ready. The plan was simple and brutal. They would fire the planet-killer weapon at Earth from maximum range. This weapon had never failed in 100,000 years of Zarthul military history. It could crack a world's crust and boil its oceans. The humans would have seconds to react, far too little time to mount a defense. With their homeworld destroyed, the scattered human colonies would fall into chaos and be easy to conquer. Thurok stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on the view screen. He felt satisfaction in his heart. This was how wars should be fought, with strength and decisiveness, not diplomatic words and fearful caution. The other Zarthul commanders had grown weak. He would show them the old ways still worked. Range achieved, his weapons officer reported. Planet killer weapon is charged and ready. Fire, Thurok commanded. The weapon discharged with a flash of terrible energy. A beam of pure destruction lanced across space toward Earth, carrying enough force to shatter continents. The Zarthul bridge crew cheered. In moments, the primitive homeworld would be dust, and humanity would learn the price of defiance. The beam struck something invisible around Earth. Shields appeared, glowing with power that made the Zarthul sensors scream warnings. The entire planet was protected by a barrier that their instruments had not even detected until it activated. The planet-killer beam hit the shield and stopped completely, its energy absorbed and contained. Thurok stared in disbelief. Impossible. Nothing can stop that weapon. But the impossibility continued. The shield not only absorbed the weapon's energy, it reflected it back. The planet-killer beam reversed course and struck 3 of Thurok's world ships. The massive vessels exploded in brilliant flashes, taking thousands of Zarthul lives in an instant. Evasive maneuvers, Thurok shouted, but it was already too late. Space around the Zarthul strike force suddenly filled with human ships. They appeared from nowhere, materializing from their pocket dimensions in perfect attack formation. There were thousands of them, surrounding the 400 Zarthul vessels completely. But the human ships did not fire weapons. Instead, they released pulses of energy that the Zarthul could not identify. The pulses washed over each Zarthul ship like gentle waves. Then, one by one, the alien vessels went dark, engines shut down, weapons powered off, life support remained active, but every combat system failed simultaneously. In 17 minutes, the entire Zarthul strike force was disabled and helpless, floating in space like dead metal. Thurok hammered his control panel in rage, but nothing responded. His mighty flagship was now a prisoner, held by technology he did not understand. Around him, his crew sat in shocked silence. They had not even been allowed to fight. The humans had simply turned off their ships like parents taking toys from children. Back at the main Zarthul fleet, Admiral Kelvara watched the disaster unfold on her screens. She felt horror and a strange sense of validation. She had been right to urge caution. Thurok's attack had failed completely, and now 400 ships and their crews were at human mercy. Then a transmission arrived from Earth. Ambassador Chen appeared on the screen, her expression calm and professional. Admiral Kelvara, we need to speak about General Thurok's unauthorized attack. We know he acted without your permission. We have been monitoring your internal communications since you arrived in our system. We understand chain of command issues, and we hold you personally blameless for this incident." Kelvara felt her dignity crumbling. They had been listening to everything. Every private conversation, every debate. The humans had known about Thurok's plans all along and had simply waited for him to make his move. Chen continued speaking. "We are returning General Thurok's ships and crews unharmed. We are also sending medical supplies and repair equipment to help them recover from the effects of our quantum disruption system. No one was killed in this engagement, though we regret the loss of the 3 world ships that were struck by the reflected weapon fire. That was unfortunate." The view screen split to show Zarthul's ships being guided gently by human vessels, like adults helping lost children find their way home. It was humiliating but also merciful. The humans could have destroyed every ship. Instead, they were being careful not to harm the crews. "We understand you need to maintain face with your people," Chen said. "You may tell them whatever story you prefer about what happened here. We will not contradict your official version of events. However, this is your final warning from humanity. Leave us alone, or we will be forced to protect ourselves more aggressively. We really do not want to hurt you. Please believe that." The transmission included a data package that downloaded automatically to the Zarthul computers. Kelvara opened it and felt her blood turn cold. It contained complete schematics of every Zarthul warship, every weapon, every defensive system. More than that, it included detailed notes showing every weakness, every vulnerability, every way that humans could exploit them. The message was clear without being spoken. The humans could have destroyed the entire Zarthul fleet at any time. They had known exactly how to defeat every Zarthul system from the moment the fleet entered the solar system. The only reason the Zarthul still existed was because humanity chose to let them live. The most disturbing detail was the language. The transmission was in perfect Zarthul High language, including ancient dialectical variations that modern Zarthul had forgotten. Somehow humanity had studied Zarthul culture so thoroughly that they knew more about it than the Zarthul themselves. Thurok's ships began returning to the fleet, towed by human vessels that departed quickly and politely, once their passengers were safe. The general himself was silent when he finally contacted Kelvara. His pride had been shattered, his certainty destroyed. He had learned what the admiral already knew. They were not the superior force here. They never had been. Velian reviewed all the data from the encounter with scientific fascination. "Admiral, their quantum disruption system is remarkable. It targets only combat systems while leaving life support intact. That level of precision is beyond our current technology. They could have killed everyone but chose not to." "Why?" Kelvara asked. "Why show mercy to an attacker?" "Because," Velian said slowly, "they meant what they said. They do not want to hurt us. They prepared for 30,000 years to defend themselves, but their goal was never conquest or revenge. Their goal was simply to be ready when we returned. Now they have proven they are ready, and they are offering us peace." Kelvara looked at the blue planet on her screen. Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unchanged by the brief battle. The humans had defended their home without breaking stride, without even appearing concerned. They had turned aside an attack that should have killed billions, then offered medical supplies to their attackers. "Prepare a message to Ambassador Chen," Kelvara ordered. "Tell her we wish to resume negotiations. Tell her the Zarthul Collective is ready to discuss peace terms." As her communications officer worked, Kelvara reflected on the terrible lesson they had learned. 30,000 years ago, her ancestors had threatened humanity and given them time to prepare. The humans had taken that time seriously, far more seriously than anyone could have imagined. They had turned a threat into motivation and a deadline into a goal. Now the Zarthul had lost without really fighting. They had been defeated by patience, preparation, and a willingness to show mercy that their own culture barely understood. The humans had won by being ready for war but choosing peace. It was the most complete defeat Kelvara had ever experienced, and it had been delivered with kindness. 3 days after the failed attack, scientist Primus Velian made an unusual request. She asked to visit Earth alone, not as a diplomat or warrior, but as a scholar who needed to understand. Ambassador Chen agreed immediately and sent a personal shuttle to bring Velian to the human homeworld. The scientist stood at the shuttle window, watching Earth grow larger. From space, it looked peaceful and beautiful, with white clouds drifting over blue oceans and green continents. It was hard to believe that this quiet planet was the center of an empire spanning hundreds of star systems. Harder still to believe that it had been preparing for war for 30,000 years. The shuttle landed at a place called the Human Archives of Defiance. It was built on a mountain plateau with a clear view of the sky. Chen met Velian at the entrance, smiling warmly. "Welcome to Earth, Primus Velian. This place is special to us. It stands on the exact spot where Commander Chen Li, my ancestor, gave the order to attack your fleet 30,000 years ago. We built this archive to remember that moment and everything that came after." Inside, the archives were vast and beautiful. Holographic displays showed human history from the day the Zarthul first arrived until the present moment. Velian walked through the exhibits with growing understanding, seeing how one event had shaped an entire species. Chen guided her to a section dedicated to the immediate aftermath of the Zarthul departure. After your people left, Earth fell into chaos briefly. Every nation, every group argued about what the encounter meant. Some wanted to prepare for your return. Others said we should focus on peace and hope you would not come back. The arguments lasted for years. What changed? Velian asked. "A child," Chen said softly. She pointed to a holographic image of a young girl standing before a crowd. Her name was Maya Santos. She was 8 years old when the Zarthul left. She watched your ships depart and asked her parents a simple question. What if they come back and we are not ready? Her parents shared that question with others, and it spread around the world. The hologram showed the question appearing in news broadcasts, social media, government meetings. It became a movement, then a cause, and finally a shared purpose. Within a generation, humanity had agreed on its primary goal: be ready when the Zarthul return. We did not stop fighting among ourselves, Chen explained as they walked. Humans are not good at universal peace, but we changed how we fought. Our wars became simulations and competitions. Our conflicts drove innovation instead of destruction. We channeled our aggressive nature into preparation. They entered a large chamber filled with records of human progress. Velian saw the development of new technologies, each one designed to answer a specific question. What if the Zarthul have better shields, develop better weapons? What if they attack from multiple directions, create faster ships? What if they try to divide us, build stronger alliances with other species? You gave us the greatest gift any enemy can give, Chen said. You gave us focus. Before you came, humanity was scattered, fighting over small things, unable to work together. After you left, we had a common purpose. We had something to unite us. Velian felt strange emotions stirring in her chest. But we threatened to destroy you. How is that a gift? Chen stopped and looked at the Zarthul scientist with gentle eyes. Because you showed us we were not alone in the universe. You showed us that danger was real and that we needed to be stronger. You gave us a deadline, and humans work very well with deadlines. Without your visit, we might still be fighting among ourselves on Earth, never reaching for the stars. They walked to a viewing platform that overlooked a memorial garden. In the center stood a statue of Commander Chen Li, her hand raised in the signal that launched the first attack. But she was not portrayed as angry or afraid. The sculpture showed her as determined and hopeful. My ancestor knew the attack would fail, Chen said quietly. She was not stupid. But she also knew that doing nothing would destroy human spirit. She chose to fight, even hopelessly, to show that humanity would not surrender. That choice defined us for 30,000 years. Velian studied the statue for a long moment. We thought we were teaching you a lesson. We thought giving you time would make you peaceful and obedient. You did teach us a lesson, Chen replied, but not the one you intended. You taught us that the universe does not care about weakness. You taught us that preparation matters more than hope. You taught us that we had to be better, not different. We are still aggressive, still competitive, still prone to conflict. But now we turn those traits into strengths instead of letting them destroy us. The scientist turned to face the ambassador. Why did you not attack our homeworld when you had the power? You could have invaded Zarthul space at any point in the last 10,000 years. Chen looked genuinely confused by the question. Why would we do that? You were not threatening us anymore. We spent 30,000 years preparing for your return and we succeeded. Mission accomplished. Now we can be friends instead of enemies. That concept is alien to us, Velian admitted. In Zarthul culture, you either conquer or are conquered. There is no middle ground. Then maybe we have something to teach you now, Chen said with a smile. Strength is important, but it is not everything. The ability to show mercy, to choose peace even when you can win through war, that is also a kind of strength. They sat on a bench in the memorial garden, Looking up at Earth's sky, Chen pulled out a datapad and showed Velian something unexpected. Messages from other alien species that humanity had encountered. "These are our friends and allies," she explained. "Some of them we met through conflict, others through exploration. But we learned something important. The universe is big enough for everyone. Resources are not as scarce as people fear. Most conflicts happen because of misunderstanding, not genuine need." Velian read through the messages, seeing warm relationships between humanity and species she had never heard of. "How many species have you made friends with?" 23 so far, Chen said. "We hope to make it 24 soon. You want the Zarthul to be your friends?" Velian felt surprise, of course. "You are fascinating people with a rich culture and advanced technology. Why would we not want to know you better? Yes, you threatened us once, but that was 30,000 years ago. People change. Civilizations change. We do not hold grudges forever." Admiral Kelvara arrived at Earth that evening for formal peace negotiations. She was brought to the same conference room where she had first met Chen, but the atmosphere was different now. There was no tension, no posturing for advantage. Both sides knew the truth, and that made everything simpler. "The Zarthul Collective agrees to a non-aggression pact with humanity," Kelvara stated formally. "We will not threaten your worlds or interfere with your expansion. We also wish to open trade relations and cultural exchanges." Chen nodded happily. "Wonderful. We have already prepared proposals for trade agreements. We think you will find them fair and beneficial." As the negotiations continued, Kelvara found herself asking the same question Velian had asked. "Why did you not expand toward our territory? You could have invaded us at any time in the last 10,000 years. Chen's response was the same as before, delivered with genuine confusion at the question. "Why would we invade you? That would be wrong. We prepared for war because you threatened us, but we never wanted to threaten others. The best revenge is living well, as one of our old sayings goes. We lived well, became strong, and now we can all benefit from peace." The final treaty was signed in the memorial garden under Earth's sun. Kelvara and Chen stood together before the cameras, shaking hands in the human style while Zarthul and human ships flew overhead in formation. Velian sent her final report to the Zarthul collective leadership that night. She sat in a human library on Earth, surrounded by thousands of years of human thought and culture, and wrote carefully, "We did not encounter a civilization more advanced than us. We encountered a civilization that is more adaptable than us. Humanity does not just survive challenges. They are nourished by them. They turn every obstacle into an advantage. They took our threat 30,000 years ago and transformed it into the foundation of their greatest achievements. We tried to teach them a lesson. Instead, they learned everything about us, including all our weaknesses, and they have been waiting patiently to show us what they learned. Recommendation: never threaten humanity again. They take threats seriously and they have very, very long memories. But also recommend embrace humanity as allies. They show mercy to defeated enemies and loyalty to friends. These traits are rare in the galaxy and valuable beyond measure." 5 years later, a human ship arrived in Zarthul space carrying the first cultural exchange delegation. Young Zarthul students boarded the vessel to study at human universities and learn about the species that had become the galaxy's most unlikely peacemakers. On Earth, in a school on the slopes of the Memorial Mountain, a teacher stood before her class of young children. She taught them about the Zarthul's return and humanity's peaceful resolution of the crisis. "The Zarthul gave our ancestors 30,000 years to prepare," the teacher said. "Our ancestors made every single one of those years count. They did not waste time on fear or revenge. They focused on being ready, on being strong,